There's a moment in every coalition meeting when someone says the quiet part out loud. Just remember who got you that rice.
And suddenly, the room gets weird.
And awkward, because credit is the most dangerous currency in coalition politics.
Everybody wants it.
And no one wants to talk about it.
But the moment someone starts keeping score,
the coalition that just won the fight starts losing the next one.
Today, we're talking about what happens after the merge.
When the coalition that just took power has to figure out how to govern itself. And spoiler alert, that's usually when things start breaking.
Welcome back to Outwit, Outplay, Outorganize. I'm Tykee James.
And I'm Claire Douglas. Last episode, we talked about one of the wildest tribal councils in Survivor history.
There was a vote steal.
An idol nullifier.
And you had advantages flying around like confetti at a political convention.
The Davids pulled off one of the cleanest insurgent campaigns Survivor has ever seen.
They truly outwitted, outplayed, and outorganized the majority.
That's exactly right. But here's the thing about insurgencies, and what people don't realize is that winning power is the easy part.
Well, that's in some ways comforting, but also deeply terrifying.
Because the moment you become the majority, the strategy changes. And if you don't change with it, your coalition starts to crack.
So what's today's thesis, Claire?
Well, here it is. Insurgents are great at winning power. They're terrible at governing it.
So winning the revolution, step one. Running the country, step two.
And most coalitions are not prepared for step two. At this point in the season, the Davids have done the impossible. They outmaneuvered the Goliath. They flipped the numbers. They've gone from underdogs to the governing coalition.
This is the moment in every campaign, and I've done it before, where someone sends the email that says, "We did it. We did it, Joe.
Let's have cake." And of course, the celebratory emails on listservs are sure to follow.
Which is immediately followed by 20 new problems.
Because once you're in power, incentives change. People start thinking about three things: who gets credit, who becomes the next target, and who actually benefits from this coalition staying together.
Now, back to the island. This brings us to Carl.
Oh, Carl. He helped engineer the Davids' biggest move. He played the idol nullifier. He helped pull off the heist. But once the Davids took control, something shifts.
Yes. The hammock of power, where people lounge when they're drunk on power and they feel untouchable.
Yeah, that's right. Carl starts summoning people to the hammock to talk strategy as if he's the king.
And this is Survivor code for, I have just become the Senate Majority Leader of this beach, and I will not allow the president to appoint a Supreme Court justice in the same year of an election because I would never allow something like that to happen if the parties were switched.
Oh, it's as if there's a concrete example that you're thinking about when you're talking about that.
Yeah, a pivot player, an individual that can completely determine the outcome of generations of law.
But yeah, back to Carl. Carl starts excluding people from decisions, including Gabby. At one point, he literally tells her to vote incorrectly at tribal council.
Which is a polite way of saying, you're not part of the real alliance, you're not even part of the group chat.
I don't know how you can say you're an alliance and not tell one of your alliance members who you're voting for.
He's saying you have been demoted or tokenized or used as a pawn. And that's when Gabby realizes something important. The coalition she helped build might not protect her anymore. Dun, dun, dun. Let's pause the episode for a second, because what we're watching isn't just Survivor drama, it's coalition physics. Every coalition runs on 4 ingredients: shared story, shared power, cohesion, and durability.
Sounds great, Claire. Could you break that down for us?
Happily. First, there's a shared story. Organizers sometimes call this the story of us. It answers questions like, why are we in this fight together?
And the Davids had a really great answer to that question.
That's right. Their story was simple. We are the underdogs. Different personalities, different backgrounds, but the same shared identity.
Everybody loves an underdog story. Rocky, Star Wars, Friday, next Friday, Friday after the next, barbershop. All great underdog stories.
And that story creates shared power. People trust each other. They're coordinated. That's how the Davids pulled off the big heist. And then comes cohesion, the ability to act together under pressure. And finally, durability. Can the coalition survive the next stress test, as Jane McAlevey used to reference all the time? Rest in peace, my dear mentor, Jane.
So then, where do the Davids fail in this?
They fail right at that transition, because once they win, their story disappears. They're not underdogs anymore. They're real competitors.
Is it possible to be scrappy even when you're the one holding the majority? Because here's the trap. What worked when the other side was chanting Goliath strong doesn't translate when you're suddenly trying to rally people around David strong.
That's right. You don't get to inherit an identity. You have to build one. And if you can't use their slogans or their playbook, the question is, what's yours? What's the authentic story that actually holds your coalition together? Because the minute the Davids take power, two things disappear at the same time. Goliath strong is gone, and the David the underdog story goes with it. That's when coalitions start to unravel.
Yeah, I mean, in some part, I lived in that tension. On paper, I was a Goliath. In high school, I was a quarterback of the football team, captain of the track team, captain of the debate team, Future Farmers of America, parliamentarian. I did a little bit for the yearbook. I was on the dance team. I did a little theater, and I never missed a day of school.
I didn't know all that about you, Tykee, but this is why we're friends. Because you and I are both a Goliath and a David. Like on paper, I made varsity as a freshman, but I also lived in the woods, made crafts, went contra dancing, and did ethics debates, where I believe we were the regional champions of some year. I don't want to date myself.
All right, that's fair. And that's not just a resume, but that's also a really great Survivor backstory package.
And that's the point. Most people aren't one or the other. The real question is, which identity are you organizing around? And does it still make sense for the power you actually have now? And when coalitions start unraveling, it usually shows up first in leadership behavior. Because now that they have the power, they can hoard it. Leaders decide who gets information, who gets credit, and who gets protected. And when leaders misread the moment, the coalition reorganizes all around them. Carl makes 3 classic majority mistakes. First, entitlement. He starts acting like the coalition exists to serve him.
Carl's error in this game at this point is his confidence that he can say whoever he wants to and that everyone's going to go along with it.
Which never goes well in Survivor or group projects for those students listening.
And well, not just students, right? Like your teammates, colleagues, no one likes that. The second mistake, information leaks. After finally winning a reward challenge, Carl gets hammered and drunkenly tells Kara the plan to vote out one of her allies.
I don't know if it was a slip up on his part, but beers are flowing, he's comfortable with me, and he just decides that he wants to get Allison out.
Which means the minority suddenly knows the majority's playbook, and your information flow is now all over the place.
And third, there's alliance ranking. Rather than respecting everyone in the alliance, Carl makes it clear that Gabby is now expendable.
Which is the fastest way to create a flip, where somebody turns against you internally, breaks their loyalty to the coalition, and perhaps changes sides or becomes a free agent.
Yeah, we never want that free agent. Because once someone realizes that they're on the bottom, they stop protecting the current coalition they're in, and they start protecting themselves. Gabby's move is a perfect example of strategic timing. Carl is consolidating power, and there's a choice. Option 1, she can stay loyal and hope she survives. Or option 2, she can flip before she even becomes the target. Which would you choose, Tykee?
It's a tough spot, but I would begrudgingly go with option 2.
As you should, if you're playing to win. So what happens? She and Christian flip the vote, and Carl goes home. And this is an irony of insurgent politics. The Davids beat the Goliaths by outmaneuvering them. But the moment they gained power, they started playing like Goliaths.
Damn, brutal. But strategically valid.
Because Survivor rewards timing. If you wait until the vote after you're the target, you're already gone.
We need to talk about the most Survivor moment of the episode, Angelina's rice negotiation.
Yeah, this is a good one. At this point, the camp is dangerously low on rice, and Angelina orchestrates a plan to negotiate with Jeff. She ends up trading her shot at immunity to get more rice for the tribe.
On paper, great move. The tribe literally gets food, she gets in the good graces, and one of her allies potentially gets protected.
It shows that I'm a risky player who's willing to make big moves and big sacrifices to make things happen.
But socially, it backfires because Angelina keeps reminding everyone that she got them the rice, even though she says she did it selflessly.
For me, securing the rice,
I got rice for the entire tribe yesterday.
I hate to pull this card, but when I got the rice for the tribe,
Me winning rice for the tribe, I stepped out of a puzzle challenge in order for us all to have rice.
I was able to secure rice for the last 11 days.
And every time she brings up her random act of riceness, people like her less.
A lot less, because coalitions run on credit, and credit must be assigned by the group, not claimed by an individual. If you have to remind people of your sacrifice, the sacrifice didn't land.
I do have to point out that the whole point of a selfless act is to be selfless about
Fair
it
enough,
and not bring
fair
it
enough.
up.
Also, if someone says, remember who got you the rice 5 times a day, I might start hiding the rice.
Yeah, I would too. And Angelina didn't just negotiate rice. She accidentally rewrote the story of the tribe. Instead of, we got food, the story became, I got you the food.
Which is not great coalition messaging.
And that's because she's treating the tribe like a transaction. In transactional politics, relationships work like a ledger. I did something for you. Now you do something for me. I scratch your back. You scratch my back. I see it all the time in DC.
Yeah, it's not solidarity, it's something else.
Right. Transactional politics is basically Survivor's version of Venmo. Request $5 for rice.
Which I assume Jeff would oversee personally, if that's how the rules work.
Yeah, sure. Why not? But coalitions, they rarely survive on transactional relationships. They survive on transformational relationships. That's when the story becomes not, I got you rice, but we solved a problem together.
And that makes people want to keep solving problems together.
Exactly. Transactional politics keep score, and they tend to be incremental. Transformational relationships build power and revolutionize. And this is where the coalition physics come back. Remember the chain we talked about earlier? Shared story, shared power, cohesion, durability. Transactional leadership breaks that chain. Because the moment leadership turns into ledgers and scorekeepers, the story changes.
From, we're all in this together,
To, what have you done for me lately?
which is a terrible look and feeling for a coalition.
Yeah, really bad look. Like Pharrell large hat or that meat dress or Harry Styles crazy photo shoot bad. Shared story creates shared power, but transactional leadership turns shared power into individual credit. And once everyone starts protecting their credit, cohesion disappears, which is why the Davids start unraveling right when they take over the island. Coalitions don't collapse because people stop caring. They collapse because people start keeping score.
All right, bird nerds, time for winning on the wing. You have seen the triangle-like or V shapes of migrating geese before. Leadership rotates. One bird floats in the front and breaks wind resistance. That's called a chevron. But that one bird doesn't stay there forever. Eventually it falls back, and another bird takes the lead.
And that is a great metaphor for coalition leadership.
If one bird insists on leading the entire route of the migration, the flock will burn out.
Carl tried to lead the entire migration. And this is like what you were talking about earlier, Tykee. Tell the listeners more about what you did, as this is a very common mistake and comes down to how you use your personal resources and time.
I realized I was a bottleneck for a coalition where everything had to get reviewed by me or somebody had to contact me in order to do something. Me being ahead of that chevron for so long started wearing down on me, where I'm like, hey, I think we're going somewhere, but somehow I'm still in the way. So I took a lesson from the geese, from the gaggles of geese, and we reorganized. I flew to the back of the chevron and other folks flew up to the front.
Chef's kiss. That's exactly what you need to do. We're always going to make mistakes, but you have to identify them and then fix them so that you can fly on. And here's the part that surprises people. Power doesn't erode slowly in games like Survivor or in campaigns. It just flips or turns on a dime. 1 vote ago, the Davids were the dominant coalition. Now, the board is completely open again. 8 players remain. There are possible fractions that start appearing. You have Davy, Nick, and Angelina, which is a combination of 2 Davids and 1 Goliath. You have Christian and Gabby, both Davids. You have Allison, Kara, and Mike, all Goliaths.
There's no clear majority.
Exactly. The Davids won power by outmaneuvering the Goliaths, and then immediately started repeating the same mistakes. Overconfidence, information leaks, leadership egos.
Well, I guess it turns out beating the majority is a lot easier than becoming one.
Ah, yes. Exactly what I was talking about earlier, Tykee. I just love it when the men finally catch up and start listening to us women. All right, so here's your power move this week. Run the coalition stress test. Ask your team 3 questions. What story actually holds this coalition together? What happens when someone loses influence? What incentives keep partners in the coalition after the win?
Because if you don't know the answers to those questions,
you don't have durability. You just have momentum. And momentum burns out.
if you're facing a Goliath and your slingshot feels a little flimsy, email us at hello@newfundamentals.com. Whether it's a question for the show or you want Claire to help you and your team find its slide puzzle solution, we want to hear from you.
And don't forget to follow or subscribe and leave us a review. That's how we find more people ready to win.
Until next time.
Outwit.
Outplay.
Outorganize.